Hello, everyone. My name is Lori McDaniel. Welcome to this webinar on DEI benchmarking and reporting strategies. My name again is Lori McDaniel. I'm the founder of Rainbow Bridges DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through some benchmarking and reporting thought processes, some strategies, how to think about it, some tools, and so on. I'll talk a little bit about myself now, and then kind of towards the end, I will set you up for success by offering a few things. But between now and then, we're going to talk about why benchmarking and reporting, why is it important in DEI, in diversity, equity, and inclusion? Why do we do it? Common challenges with benchmarking and reporting, a secret to benchmarking and reporting success, a reporting roadmap, and I'll go through a bunch of templates and resources that might be helpful for you. So who am I? Before we dive in, again, I'm Lori McDaniel. I have a background as a consultant, a facilitator, coach, trainer. I have a long career of 20 plus years in consulting, project management, training, even learning design. And I have over 10 years in transformational leadership, facilitation, and coaching. And that includes transformational DEI leading and facilitating, coaching as well, learning design as well. And I have over 10,000 hours of coaching and facilitation in the transformational DEI and transformational leadership realms over the last decade. So welcome. So first of all, why do we benchmark and report? Like, why do we care? Why do we need to do it? Well, it's because human beings, really the way that we're wired, we need context and comparison to understand things, right? We need to understand where we stand relative to something else. Where things are in relation to other things matters to how our brains work. And it helps us see linear progress as well. Like, are we getting to where we want to be? Or are we the same now as last year? And are we the same compared to other companies or organizations like ours, or are we different in some way? So benchmarking and reporting can also really tell the story of where we are in relation to where we are now in relation to where we want to be. Right? What's the gap? That's another reason for benchmarking and reporting. And finally, status, right? As you have DEI initiatives, DEI efforts, you want to have a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual status too, right? Again, kind of pointing more specifically to that linear progress. So those are some of the reasons for why benchmarking and reporting. So some of the most common challenges in the DEI space is, first of all, how do you measure DEI? I hear that question pretty regularly. People kind of scratch their heads and wonder, well, how do you measure something like this? Number two, what metrics or measurements do we use? Once we decide what we're going to measure, for example, hiring, retention, compensation, how do we measure it? Like, what metrics or measurements do we use? And then number three, how do we benchmark, right? How do we show linear progress, us against us, year over year, let's say, and then also at other companies? What are they doing, right? Are we in line with where we should be in our industry, for example, or for our company size, for example? And number four, how do we create meaningful reports? Right? Maybe we have figured out 1, 2, and 3, but then number 4, okay, great. We know what we're measuring. We know how we're measuring it. We're benchmarking well, but then reporting, right? That's sort of this whole question in and of itself. So we're going to talk about all of these things. So I'm saying here, right, that the secret solution, which isn't so secret if you have already stumbled across it, it's this wonderful set of benchmarks called the GDEIB, and it was developed by the Center for Global Inclusion. Now, the GDEIB stands for Global DEI Benchmarks, right? That's GDEIB, that's where it comes from. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop out of the I'm going to pop in and out of the slide deck. I forgot to mention that. I'm going to do that several times to actually show you things online, show you templates and resources and so on. So I do want to pop out at this point and go to this site so that you get a sense of what we are, what I'm talking about here. So if you go to this particular website, you'll see that it's the Center for Global Inclusion, and they created this 94-page document that is really a set of benchmarks. It's a set of metrics, benchmarks, and what I'm going to show you is also a roadmap for reporting. So this is about the center itself, some of the experts who put this together, and as you can see, it's actually available to everyone. Okay, so I want to make sure that everyone is clear that this is a free resource. There is a user agreement that you would have to download, and you have to give a little bit of information about yourself, and there are certain parameters of use. But just know that this is actually available to you as well, not just consultants and coaches like me. So that's all about the document. Now, if I pop over here, I do want to show you just quickly, see how this is 94 pages. It's this lovely document, and you can scroll through and explore what they're saying we should be using as metrics and benchmarks and so on. All right, great. So now let's pop back into we're going to go back into the slide deck, and we're going to keep going. Oops, wrong button. There we go. Okay, so I encourage you to go and take a look at it. You can download the 94-page document and really start to familiarize yourself with what they're proposing. So now let's do a bit of a deep dive into the GDEIB. So what I'm proposing is that the GDEIB is actually a complete benchmarking and reporting roadmap. It's really quite thorough, and at a strategy level even, which we're not even talking about today necessarily, but I do want to allude to the fact that it really is a strategy as well. Like if you're looking for how to approach DEI, it could be that. Now today we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about benchmarking and reporting, but I did want to put that out there because it is really helpful for that. Now about the GDEIB, there are 275 benchmark metrics that are put forth in detail in that document. There are 4 groups in those metrics. There are 15 categories, and there are 5 levels. So now let's take a look. So at a glance, a quick overview here of the 275 metrics. Well, not all 275, but at a high level, how it's all organized. Here are the 4 groups that were mentioned, right? Foundation, internal, bridging, and external. 15 categories and concrete actions. We've got vision, leadership, structure within foundation. Within internal, we have recruitment, advancement, compensation, benefits, and flexibility. In bridging, we have assessment, communications, learning, and sustainability. In external, we have community, services and products, marketing and consumer service, and responsible sourcing. So within each of these, like vision, for example, we'll see how they have given us metrics and benchmarks to use. So each of these has its own set of recommended actions, like what does it look like when you're doing really well versus really poorly, and how to measure with metrics. And so again, there are 275 total benchmarks at 5 levels. Okay, so let's keep going. So a little bit more about those 4 groups mentioned. It is foundation, here's foundation. Internal, we have internal right here. We have external here, and we have bridging here. These things bring everything together: assessment, communications, learning, sustainability. This is what's known as this triangle with the circle in the middle is known as the GDEIB model. Okay, so for benchmarking, metrics, even reporting. We have the 15 categories. We've already touched on this, but again, we have the 4 groups, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And within each group, we have 3 or more ways to measure. And you can begin to see from a strategy point of view, right? Stepping back, or going up or zooming out, you can see that this is actually a great kind of like paint by the numbers. Here's how to do DEI in your organization, right? You're going to start here, always with the foundation. And then you can really kind of pick and choose from here and here as to where you go next. These are the bridge categories that you should always be doing in some form or fashion to bring it all together. From a benchmarking point of view, again, we have metrics in each of these categories. Now, these are the metrics. So there are 5 levels of metrics within each of those categories. So for example, we are in category 1, vision, right? It's actually just called vision, and they go further, right, into detail, get more granular by saying vision, strategy, and business impact, more granular here. Now you'll notice here's level 5. Let's see. Yes, sorry, level 5, right? And you have level 4, you have level 3, and you have level 2 and 1. You can see it a little better in this screenshot. Here's level 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. These are the 5 levels that are within each category, like vision. So if we zoom in on this, right, you may not be able to see it here. Let me pop out of the slide deck, and I have this open. So I really want you to see how easy this makes everything. So here we are in category 1. Here's level 5, best practice. Level 1 is inactive. So this is how you can measure how well your organization or maybe your department or team is doing. So level 1 is inactive. Again, we're talking about these things, vision, strategy, and business impact. So if it's level 1, there is no DEI vision, mission, strategy, goals, policies, principles, or program, right? So if you check that box, you're at level 1, inactive. Now, then your aspiration would be to get to at least level 2. The center itself actually says level 3 and above is really where you're actually getting something done with DEI. If you're at level 1 or level 2, it's not a problem, but it just means that you don't have a very thriving foundation, right? And you need to get to level 3. So here we are at level 2, you're at the reactive level, right? A basic DEI vision, mission, and strategy have been developed and communicated to all employees. DEI is defined broadly to include some dimensions beyond gender, race, and ethnicity. Compliance with basic legislation is in place. Okay, so again, here are metrics that you can begin using and benchmarking, right? Like, how are we doing with our check mark this quarter? How are we doing with our check marks next quarter? Are we able to move up a level and check all these off, right? So everyone is trying to get to level 5. When you read the GDEIB in its entirety, there are very few organizations that are at a level 5 in totality. Most organizations are checking boxes in various levels, right? So you may be doing great here, have a few check marks here, have a few check marks here, and maybe there's something to work on in this category, which would be very common. Okay, so these are, again, the 5 levels within the categories. Okay, great. So now let's pop back over here and we're going to keep on going here. And I really think that, again, what I want to underscore is that the GDEIB is making it simple, clear, straightforward for how to benchmark, right? How to have clear, easy to follow, and impactful metrics. So looking back at these common challenges questions, number one, how do you measure DEI? Okay, we have that now, right? We have a roadmap for that. What metrics do we use? Well, we can start with those, absolutely, and just iterate over time. How do we benchmark? Okay, we've checked these off. We now have very clear, easy to follow ways to do that. Number four, this is what we're going to talk about next. So how do we report on these things, right? How do you create the reports for these really, really cool metrics that we now have? So the GDEIB as a reporting roadmap is what I'm proposing, right? I've touched on this already and I'd like to underscore it now. The GDEIB can really be a reporting roadmap by using those metrics and simply kind of transferring them into a reporting format. You can do weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual, like whatever the need is in your organization. And what you can also do is create scorecard and dashboard reports based on those GDEIB metrics, right? You don't have to do scorecards and dashboards. You could do simpler reports. That's fine. I do want to open the door of possibility here that you create some really cool and meaningful, interesting, very useful scorecards and dashboards. So if you're not familiar with what those are, I want to walk you through several. I kind of want to just give you a DEI scorecards and dashboards primer, if you will, in case you're not familiar with those. So scorecards and dashboards are pretty similar. They're basically reports that look like these. They're visual, they have colors, they might use stoplights like yellow, green, red to show whether the initiative item, like if you have a DEI initiative, like those DEI metrics we were looking at in the 5 levels, you can imagine stoplights, right? So you'd have your check mark and maybe a green, right? Yellow for we're working on it, it's in progress, and maybe red like we don't have that at all and it's kind of a problem, like maybe it's kind of stuck. We need to work on that. So these are examples here of what that could look like. Now, I also want to draw your attention to the possibility of DEI dashboards. Dashboards and scorecards are really similar. Dashboards tend to look a little more like this with, I guess you'd call that like a dial. Like, where's the needle? Have we moved the needle into the top, right? These are just examples of random subjects here, not DEI, but these are classic dashboards because you'll have like charts, you'll have pie charts, you'll have like graph charts, pie charts, these needle, I'm not sure what these are called. I call these dials where there's a needle, right? So what I want to do is pop out of the dashboard and I'm going to show you a bunch of really neat things that'll help you with this. So first of all, if you just search by scorecard templates or dashboard templates, you're going to, if you click on images rather than all, the default, right? If you go to images, you can kind of scroll through and see what's out there. These are all different kinds of scorecard templates, scorecard software, examples. And again, what we're doing is we're thinking about simply plugging in the metrics that we've looked at from the GDEIB into our choice of template, right? To make our lives easy and to also have a very meaningful report to show our organization. Okay, So I just wanted to give you that tip and start to familiarize yourselves, to familiarize you with the look and feel of scorecards. And again, dashboards are very, very similar. So Monday.com, very popular software out there for managing projects, doing all kinds of things. And they have some really neat scorecard templates. So I wanted to suggest this as a possibility. You can actually just kind of, this is a great resource. This article actually, it talks about the balanced scorecard format. The balanced scorecard format is just it's not just in DEI, right? It's a business reporting format, and it always looks at these 4 areas: customer, financial, internal business processes, learning, and growth. And I really like the idea of having a balanced scorecard format for DEI as well. That is a possible way to take those cool GDEIB metrics and perhaps massage them a little bit into 4 categories of your choosing. And I would recommend keeping learning and growth as one of those, right? But you could have other things here, maybe talent acquisition, maybe promotion, maybe compensation, right? I'm just kind of pulling these out of the air. These could be anything, okay? But this is just one way. It's not the right way, but it's just one way to begin to organize your data from those metrics and put it into an easy to understand report format. Okay, so balanced scorecard as a format, Monday.com is a potential source for templates. Okay, now, if you can bear with me one moment. So what I did was I just kind of grabbed a template from Monday.com and played around with it a little bit to see what it would look like. This is just one of many templates. And I plugged in, I put in talent acquisition scorecard. And let's say that, I'm in HR and I want to have more diverse recruiting for my organization. So I'm going to historically Black colleges and universities for recruiting, as well as California schools, right? And so at a glance, you can see this is done, right? This is going well. This is going okay. It's in progress. You can see the dates and so on. Okay, so very simple scorecard example. I set this up in about 10 or 15 minutes, so pretty simple. Now dashboard, similar to scorecards, I just did a search. Interestingly, I did not find much for DEI. I couldn't find much at all for DEI, only for dashboard and scorecard. So that's not a problem, but just letting you know, there's not a lot of pre-created templates out there for you to use. You'll have to use a generic template and then just plug in your own data, your own information. So these are dashboards, very similar to scorecards, but a little more dashboardy. If you kind of see what I mean, like these are classic dashboards where different squares have different charts and so on here. This is a classic looking dashboard, right? Scorecard is a little bit more like a standard report, I guess, whereas this has more visual charting going on and graphs. Okay, so then this is an article that has some good examples in it. This is the Academy, sorry, one moment, Academy to Innovate HR. I thought this was a great article because not only is it giving you information about how to create your dashboard, but it gives you some really neat examples, just very, very simple, but again, very meaningful to the person who's reading this. It should be telling a story of your progress and current status, for example. Okay. Now, Papaya Global actually does have a DE&I dashboard, which I thought was really, really neat. It was one of the only ones I found that was pre-created only for, specifically for DEI. So I do want to draw your attention to that. You might want to check that out and take a look if it's right for your particular organization. The thing about a dashboard or a scorecard, if you use software for it, is that you can be entering data, somewhere, those metrics somewhere, and then it's automatically updating this dashboard, right? For upper management, for example, it's automatically updating. That's like the whole point of using a scorecard or dashboard software. Now, you can certainly do this manually in Excel or something like that, or in a PowerPoint deck, but it's a manual updating process then. Um, you just kind of have to pick and choose depending on your situation. So now we have an example of a PowerPoint slide. So this is a really pretty detailed key performance indicator scorecard template. It is a slide deck, right? It's a simple slide deck, a couple of different slides here. And so you do have to update this manually, but it does look great and it does give meaningful information, right? This is very generic. You'd have to go in and kind of update everything. But if you're doing that quarterly, that's probably not a big heavy lift. Okay. Last couple of examples I want to show you. This is in Excel, and it doesn't really look like Excel because they've done such a nice job with the graphics, and I think the fonts and everything, it just looks nice. But you can just, you can click into each of these cells wherever you want to be, right? And do some editing. So I wanted to show you the possibilities of what something can look like in Excel that, it looks really nice. It doesn't have to be PowerPoint or fancy software like Papaya. You can download this. I believe this was from Smartsheet. Yeah, Smartsheet. If you go to Smartsheet, they have a lot of templates, not just this look and feel, but a lot. So it's worthwhile checking it out. Okay. Okay, great. So I wanted to take that time to walk you through possibilities. And again, the whole point, I know I keep saying this, but I just want to make sure that you don't feel overwhelmed by different possibilities and like, how would you do all this? Really, it's just starting with the GDEIB, choosing your metrics, right? Kind of wrapping your mind around and making choices about what metrics you're going to use. And later, you would choose the actual reporting format. Okay. So scorecards, dashboards, that comes after you do the thinking and deciding and kind of choosing and discussion process around the metrics. Phase 2, reporting. So now we've answered this last question. How do we create DEI reports, right? You've seen a lot of different tools, resources, different ways that you can go about it. And you can make it, just keep in mind that if you're not necessarily tech savvy and this is you that's going to be doing this, highly recommend purchasing templates, right? Find a template or two that you really like from a source like Smartsheet Online. There are so many resources out there, sites like that. And then you just work with it. You just get to know that template and you update it yourself manually. Delete things that you don't need, keep it simple. And then you have a really great, meaningful presentation of the story of your data. And it's easy on you, right? It's easy on you, makes you look professional, right? You're giving a professional polish to everything. So finally, again, just kind of recapping tools, templates, and resources that we've talked about. We talked about Smartsheet. I didn't talk about Power BI. This is Microsoft's reporting software. If you have the Microsoft Office suite, if you're using Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, generally you have Power BI as well. If you don't, I believe it's a monthly subscription. You can always add it on. And it allows you to create really neat dashboards, reports, visual things like that. And then Papaya, I mentioned, they're the ones that have the DEI dashboard It already is pre-created, and it's based on, it pulls data from your system into the dashboard. And then finally, we touched on Excel. You can keep things simple and find a template and then just manually update it. And same thing with PowerPoint, right? PowerPoint slide deck. So recap is that what I'm proposing here is that we use the GDEIB to solve those common challenges, right? How do we do this? Where am I? Who's on first, right? You can use the GDEIB as a paint by numbers almost approach that's actually very substantive, meaningful, helps you find your way. And then it can also be a reporting roadmap. It gives you those 5 levels, the different categories, and you can simply choose your strategy based on those categories and metrics. And then again, phase 2 would be the reporting. And then part of the reporting is using those great tools and resources or ones that you find to create editable tools and templates, right? So now what I want to do is just make sure that you have support. If you want to go it on your own, that's fine. If you want to reach out to me for a benchmarking and reporting assessment and also a GDEIB 2023 reporting checklist, that's $399 through December 30th. And really, it's me having a 30-minute conversation with you to get a sense of what you need, what you're looking for, and then you showing me, right? There needs to be some kind of like a walkthrough. We can do it during that 30 minutes or at a different time where you walk me through what you have and or you can send me things. And then I do a benchmarking and reporting assessment using the GDEIB and a couple of other tools that I have developed. And I also provide you with a reporting checklist so that you can go forward with your own kind of customized checklist of what to do in succession. There's also a GDEIB DEI learning roadmap that I've developed. And so that's $299 through December 30th as well. There's a whole section on learning and development for DEI that is in the GDEIB. And so I've created a simple roadmap for folks who are struggling with that. Like, what are we going to do in 2023 for our DEI learning? How do we think about this? How do we strategize? What are our objectives? How are we going to do this transformation? Okay. And to request an assessment and a checklist or the DEI learning roadmap, just reach out to me, please, at calendly.com/Lori McDaniel. You can sign up for a 30-minute call, and then we get a lot done in that 30 minutes to have you be successful with benchmarking and reporting. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching the webinar. Feel free to just reach out and say hello. I'm always interested in hearing about how things are going in the field. Like, what are your pain points? What are your wins? And I'd love to network with anyone who wants to just reach out. Thank you so much for watching the webinar, and best of luck with your benchmarking and reporting. Thanks, everyone.